That's the truck shop there. And so workers were only paid 4 times a year. And when they were paid in tokens, which they could only spend in that shop, which belonged to the company.
Really?
So you were constantly in debt, because if you had to work for 3 months before you got paid, and you would take subs on your pay. So when the payday came, you might actually owe the company money. And if didn't matter how awful the working conditions were, you couldn't then leave until you paid off your debt.
Okay, and then where does my ancestor enter the fray? Let me guess, firebrand lawyer, fighting for the rights of the workers, wants to free them from this tyranny. Is he?
No, I'm afraid he's not.
No. He's in the turret, chucking stones at them.
Something like that.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Every story needs a villain, and it just happens to be that our ancestor is probably going to be the villain. Like, best hope is that he's just a sort of pen pusher, following orders.
I see him with one of those feather-type pens, rather than swishing around with a wax moustache and a cloak.
I want him to be just like, sort of mid-level Roman. Like, supporting villain.
In Thomas Jones Phillips's time, the Nantiglow ironworks were a hotbed of social and political unrest.
Morning.
Morning.
Frank, hiya.
Heritage officer Frank Olding is showing Jack and Michael around what remains of the site.
This is one of the places that have been familiar to your 4 times great-grandfather on his visits to Nantiglow. This is the last privately built castle in the UK. It was built by the local ironmaster to protect themselves against their own workers.
Not great if you have to build a tower to protect yourself from your own workforce.
No.
That's never a good sign of a business.
This is a little watercolour, about 1829, of Nantiglow. The tower is just over there in the murk, and the ironworks here are just behind us, over there.
And in this town, what was the ironmaster actually worried about happening?
There'd been big riots in 1816 and 1822, and they'd had to bring in the Scots Greys, the cavalry regiment, and they were worried that the next time it happened, it would be better organised and even more serious. And part of the reason for all of that tension is what's going on over the way. That's the truck shop there. And so workers were only paid 4 times a year. And when they were paid in tokens, which they could only spend in that shop, which belonged to the company.
Really?
So you were constantly in debt, because if you had to work for 3 months before you got paid, and you would take subs on your pay. So when the payday came, you might actually owe the company money. And if didn't matter how awful the working conditions were, you couldn't then leave until you paid off your debt.
Okay, and then where does my ancestor enter the fray? Let me guess, firebrand lawyer, fighting for the rights of the workers, wants to free them from this tyranny. Is he?
No, I'm afraid he's not. No.
He's in the turret, chucking stones at them.
Something like that.
Pretty much.
Yes. You've probably heard that Henry Vincent has come to South Wales to lead
Yes.
the Chartist cause and is being arrested. So your 4 times great-grandfather is preparing the case against Henry Vincent.
Copies of depositions taken before the magistrates of the borough of Newport in Monmouthshire, 27th of April, 1839. Thomas Jones Phillips, clerk to the magistrates. There he is. The Secretary of State, Home Office.
Yes.
So these are being sent to the Home Office.
Yeah.
So this is our great ancestor gathering evidence to try to bang up the guys that are fighting for the rights of workers in Wales.
Yes. And we have a phrase that describes someone that does that. In Welsh, we call them a Dic Siôn Dafydd.
Dick Sean David.
A Dic Siôn Dafydd, which is a sort of Welshman that does the dirty work on behalf of the establishment, essentially on behalf of the English.
What more? So Henry Vincent's been arrested on the cooked up evidence of our ancestor. What happens next?
He's taken off to the jail at Monmouth, and the sense of unrest and grievance is growing because he's become a hero of the Chartists.
Right, yeah.
And among the things that go on are mass meetings to demand his release from prison.
A public meeting will be holden at Duke's Town on Monday next for the purpose of petitioning the Queen to dismiss the present ministry, to call to her council better and wiser men, and to dissolve the Parliament. It will be enough to tell the men of the hills that Wales expects every man to do his duty, and may God bless their righteous cause.
Splendid.
What do you think? That's very uplifting.
Very
Isn't it?
uplifting.
So this meeting is at Dukestown, which is 2 valleys over in that direction.
Frank has brought Jack and Michael to the Dukestown Working Men's Club, which stands on the spot where the Chartists held their meeting in August 1839.
And this is the report from the Monmouthshire Merlin, which is the local newspaper.
Chartist meeting at Dukestown. Mr. Frost was the principal speaker.
That's
John Frost, yes.
Yes.
He of the school.
Yes.
He said he had no doubt some emissary of government was present for the purpose of taking down his words, and he invited him to come near the platform in order that he might hear more distinctly.
The emissary.
Oh, no.
Yes.
It is our ancestor, Thomas James Phillips. He's the dodgy emissary that's come to the meeting
He is.
in like a bad disguise, and he's there at the back with a notepad, and he goes, "Oi, you're not a Chartist." And our ancestor's like, "What? Me? No, I'm really up for
False moustache.
false moustache, probably."
So he's here to take evidence.
To spy.
Again. Yes, essentially, in case they say anything seditious, which can then later be held against them.
And 2 former magistrates for Monmouthshire were present throughout the day, attended by T.J. Phillips, Esquire, clerk to the magistrates for the division of Bedwetty.
Right.
Welty.
Bedwetty.
Welty. Bedwelty. No, Bedwelty.
Bedwetty.
Bedwetty. He was very scared. So if the Home Office is sending spies to these meetings, they must be pretty scared.
They're very concerned because if anything's going to kick off, it's going to be here. People are preparing seriously for an armed insurrection, and people in quiet corners of the ironworks are making pikes and spears, and people are buying weapons. And it comes to a sort of a peak in November 1839. And this is a sworn statement given by Thomas Jones Phillips.
I'm an attorney residing and practicing at Newport. On Sunday the 3rd of November last, Mr. Humphrey, one of the magistrates, sent a messenger to request my immediate attention at Tredegar Ironworks. A great number of persons had congregated together during the night and had determined to proceed in a body towards Newport, where they were to appear at an early hour the next morning. Feeling anxious to return to Newport, I left Tredegar Ironworks on the morning of Monday, the 4th of November, by the Tredegar coach.
So all over the valleys, the miners and the ironworkers are angry. They're up in arms. They're forming mobs, and they're heading down towards Newport. And our ancestor is trailing them in his first-class coach, monitoring them at every point. Good that we're peeling away the layers of Thomas Jones Phillips. He's gone from being a sort of officious windbag to now being a full-blown snitch who's trying to stop a mob of people that are fighting for freedom.